Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. Today we are on chapter 28 of Queen Andraya. Thank you so much for coming back to listen to more. I just have a quick announcement to make that's very exciting. The paperback of Sarah's War, the story from season 2, is now officially available at Barnes & Noble. So pick up a copy if you would like. Or tell your friend to do it. Either way. All right. This is chapter 28 of Queen Andraya. Here we go. Chapter 28. Locked Up. Queen Andraya lay awake on top of the cot in one of the ship's many small cabins. The massive boat rocked somewhat more than usual. Andraya could hear the waves crashing against the solid wooden walls. It was her 4th night in the ship. They had just 2 days left. She had forgotten how tedious boat rides could be, although this one was worse, as it was the only time in her life where she had not the option to change her clothes, although she slept in only her undergarments at night. She made a silent plan to sell a couple of the jewels that were sewn into the neckline of her dress once they reached Sandrian. That way she could buy all of those traveling with her several more changes of clothes. But it was not this that kept her awake. She knew the reason this ship was empty was because they were going to pick up slaves from Sandrian. Even if their plan was to transport people to Gulin and not to Chaldrea, the queen would not allow one of her ships to assist with such a gross endeavor. Then there were her restless dreams. In every one of them she had been searching for Colleen. And on the rare occasion that she did find her, she was always just out of reach. Andraya closed her eyes and tried to focus on being calm so she could fall asleep. When she was just about to drift off, a deafening wave against her cabin's wall jolted her awake again. She sighed and sat up. Iced tea, that was what she needed. Benjamin had made some earlier. She slipped off her cot and into her Royal Navy dress once more, nearly falling over with another rock of the boat. Through the darkness, she felt her way out of her small cabin and into the open space of the lower deck, until she found the small dining room. A lantern was already lit inside. She creaked the door open and found Benjamin and Prince Steffan sitting at the small wooden table. They both looked up as she entered. "You could not sleep either, my lady?" Steffan asked. "I'm afraid not. I was hoping to find some of your leftover tea, Benjamin." "Oh, yes. Allow me to get you some." Benjamin stood to where a pitcher of tea rested on one of the large buckets. He rummaged through a low cupboard just above the ground, where there were a few dishes inside. The prince stood and kissed Andraya as if there were not a footman just 3 feet away. Benjamin purposely slowed his search for a teacup and did not stand from his crouched position until Steffan had released his lips from the queen's. "My sleepy-eyed beauty, how are you?" "Well enough," Andraya replied, "but tired and worried." Steffan nodded. "I think we all are." Benjamin handed the queen a cupful of tea. "Thank you," she said. "Come and sit," Steffan suggested. Andraya sat down at the wooden table and sipped her tea, savoring the icy cinnamon flavor. The prince sat on one of the buckets. "Why don't you sit as well?" Steffan said to Benjamin, motioning toward the bench across from the queen. "I can sit on the bucket, your highness. That way you can sit with her majesty." Steffan cocked his head in disapproval. "First of all, why are you calling me that here of all places?" He opened his arms to the small dining space. "Secondly, if I sit by her majesty, she might give me a stroke again." Andraya stifled a giggle and gave the prince a broad smile. But Benjamin did not see. "Sir!" he exclaimed. "Oh, no," Steffan said to him. "It is only because she is beautiful." Benjamin furrowed his brow in confusion. "Look at her majesty. She looks pleased with me, does she not?" the prince said with a grin. Benjamin shifted to look at Andraya, who could not help but blush and smile. "It is true, Benjamin. The prince does please me, and wherever he chooses to sit is wisdom, I think." Steffan grinned again, showing all his white teeth. "Very well. I shall not speak of it again." Benjamin sat across from the queen and sloshed his tea around with his spoon. may I be so bold as to assume that you two are progressing? The Queen raised her eyebrows as she lifted her cup to her lips. Progressing? As a couple, Benjamin clarified. The Queen looked to Steffan, who leaned forward, resting his forearms on his legs. His grin seemed to act as a catalyst for her beating heart. I dare say you are right, she agreed, unable to suppress her smile. Benjamin grinned at the two of them. He lifted his cup to the Queen. She clinked hers with his, to which Steffan laughed. And I am very happy to see that Her Majesty now has a suitor who will treat her with the dignity she deserves, rather than... Benjamin stopped short, and nearly gagged on his unspoken words, his face a severe red. Andraya clenched her jaw. She was not aware until now that Benjamin knew of her abusive past. But considering he was the son of Nurse Rose, she was not terribly surprised. Oh, please forgive me, Your Majesty, I was not thinking, Benjamin said in one breath. Clearly, Andraya could not help saying. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Steffan give her a confused look. Heat rose in her chest and up into her throat. Benjamin knew. How humiliating. She stood in place. Benjamin stood as well. Your Majesty, he stuttered. I am sorry, truly. The prince also stood. What for? Why? He glanced back and forth between them. Prince Steffan, would you be so kind as to allow me to speak with Benjamin alone? Asked the Queen. Well, yes, Steffan said, looking as confused as ever. With one last questioning glance, he exited the small room, securing the door behind him. At once, Benjamin got down on his knees in a begging position. Oh, please, my Queen, please forgive me. I will watch my tongue with utmost vigilance from now on. I swear I have never spoken of it to anyone. By how terrified Benjamin appeared, Andraya must have looked like she held a knife in her hand. Even Miss Colleen? Andraya asked. Her words came out harsher than intended. Even her. But have you not told her? No! No one knows except your mother because she had to patch me up most of the time, and I thought I could trust her. You can trust her, Your Majesty. She only told the Marquis because he threatened her, and he might try to do something to me when we get back. His voice was steady, but his eyes were full of fear. And you cannot blame her for confiding in her own son. Oh, yes, I can, the Queen thought. Andraya took a deep breath, closing her eyes. All the humiliation of those horrible times flashed through her mind like a burning spear. She could almost feel each strike again. But it was nothing compared to the words he said. Those lurked deep in her soul. Andraya blinked hard, forcing back the angry tears coming on. Your Majesty, are you all right? Benjamin whispered. Andraya opened her eyes to see her footman still on his knees. Oh, do get up, Benjamin, she said sternly. He immediately obeyed. What can I do for you, my Queen? Promise me you will not speak any of this to the prince, Andraya ordered. Of course, but should you not speak to him about it? Certainly not. He will not have me if I do, Andraya said without thinking. Of course he will, Benjamin exclaimed. Why ever do you think that? He cares for you more than anything. That much is clear. Andraya inhaled a frantic breath and shook her head. I need some fresh air. Good night, Benjamin. And with that, the Queen stormed out the door and found her way up to the salty air of the main deck, which was lit ever so slightly with a few dim lanterns. She went to stand by the railing of the ship, happy that the few sailors she saw kept their distance. She closed her eyes and listened to the sound of the swishing waves and the wind brushing over her cheeks. She folded her arms across her chest and rubbed them with her hands to keep off the chill. She knew if she let one tear drop, sobs would soon come, so she focused on breathing in and out. She heard soft footsteps behind her, and her eyes popped open. Andraya, are you all right? Steffan asked. The Queen said nothing, but just kept her sight on the soft rolling waves. Within moments, Steffan was by her side. My lady, you might catch a cold out here, and you have just recovered from a horrible sickness. He rubbed her arms firmly with his hands. I am fine. What happened in there with Benjamin? It was all very sudden. I cannot speak of it, Andraya said, as a violent shiver ran down her spine. Steffan sighed. Then will you at least allow me to take you back down to the lower deck? Andraya nodded. He was right. She did not want to get sick before she went on this near-impossible venture. The two of them made their way to the ladder with Steffan's arm around her waist. Let us get you some food. Benjamin's leftover potato salad is really quite good, even with the potatoes being raw, the prince said, clearly trying to lighten the mood. Andraya stopped in her tracks. I cannot face him. Who? Benjamin! Why ever not? Asked Steffan, his expression utterly perplexed. The queen let out a shaky sigh and looked away. Why could she not just pretend all was well? She did not respond as she climbed down the ladder once more. Was she really concerned that the prince would not care for her if she told him? She hopped down the last step to the deck floor, as she realized that was not what she was afraid of at all. She risked a glance at the prince. Even in the darkness, she could tell he was staring at her intently. Would he grow to hate her just as Gordon did? My lady, I have never seen you so distressed, the prince said, running his fingers over her shoulders and down her arms. Please, tell me what the matter is, he whispered. I am sorry, I cannot speak of it, she whispered back. Good night, Prince Steffan. She moved to leave, but Steffan caught her hand. Please, Andraya, stay with me. Come get something to eat, he said, his voice slightly pleading. I am not hungry, she replied, as she pulled her hand away. Steffan stepped in front of her with urgency. Andraya, I do not understand this. Speak to me. I may be able to help. Andraya looked up into Steffan's gorgeous blue eyes shining in the dim light. He looked so sincere, so concerned. He lifted a hand to wipe something wet off from her cheek. The tears behind her eyes spilled over. She wiped them away angrily. I cannot bear to see you like this, he whispered. Why do you feel you cannot confide in me? It is just so... Andraya bit her lip to stop a sob. She took a deep breath to calm herself. I am sorry. I will tell you sometime, but not now. All right, Steffan said, as he rubbed his fingers down her arms again. He gave her a small smile. I will be patient. I will wait until you are ready. And that concludes chapter 28. Thank you for coming back to listen to Queen Andraya. I hope you come back next Thursday for chapter 29. Until next time, take care.